So what if there was a carnivorous plant that you could buy once and get thousands of plants from in, let's say, a year's time? You'd probably think that I was speaking in hyperbole or being ridiculous or exaggerating, but I'm not. And I spend a lot of times talking about sundews, and one of them being Drosera banata, but I've just realized that I haven't really talked about another one that is very beautiful, extremely easy to grow, and propagates profusely. And so today we're going to show you that plant and talk about how to grow it, and most importantly, how to get many, many, many plants from it. That and more coming your way in just a moment. This is Drosera banata, and believe it or not, this is not the plant that I'm talking about being able to propagate profusely. I am talking about a similar plant, Drosera filiformis. Now, this is an incredibly easy plant to grow, and in today's video I'm going to tell you all about that. I'm going to tell you how to take care of it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The one you have in front of you is Californica, which is a hybrid. Now, there aren't too many filiformis out there, hybrids or different varieties. There are some, of course, but when you compare it to a banana or some of the other sundews, it's a limited amount. The good news is that it's continuing to expand, and California Carnivorous right now, this is kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. It's got probably the largest variety that I've ever seen, and I'm not being pandering or salesy. If you don't believe me, go look. It is insane the amount that they have right now of different varieties, and if you use code CHM10 at checkout, you can save 10% off a one-time purchase. That is my affiliate link. Now, when we talk about the filiformis, they grow up and down the east coast of America, from Florida all the way up to New Jersey and beyond. And I'm going to show you two varieties, actually three varieties today. This one is a hybrid, Californica. They all grow essentially exactly the same, and so we'll talk through that. So first and foremost, let's talk about the care that they need. What type of water do they use? Well, they're going to use rainwater, reverse osmosis, or distilled water, much like any of the other carnivorous plants that you see. Well, all of them, with maybe some pseudo-carnivorous exceptions here and there. But for the most part, you're going to want to use rainwater, reverse osmosis, or distilled water. You can use tap water, but you got to make sure it's under 50 parts per million. And the way you can do that is to get you a TDS meter, total dissolved solids. You can find those on Amazon for $5. It will show you everything you need to know. So just like with water, when we're talking soil, you're also going to want inert soil. And so that is going to be, I use peat moss and perlite. You can use sphagnum moss, but really they're going to do well, or the best, in peat moss. And then 50-50 with perlite. The perlite, again, is inert, but it's also there just to help the roots breathe. These are a lot more forgiving than, say, your Venus flytraps when it comes to anaerobic conditions, and so they can handle a much higher water level and certainly a much more peaty environment. However, just to be on the safe side, 50-50 peat and perlite. Now, as far as water, I've already told you what they need water-wise. As far as sitting in water, you want to make sure that their soil stays moist at all times. I usually have them sitting in about an inch of water, which helps keep them moist at all times. Now, they, again, are very forgiving about their water levels, and so they can be even submerged underwater for weeks at a time and do just fine. So when we're talking about sunlight, just like Drosera banata, filiformis wants a ton of it. And so they want about 10 to 12 hours of direct sunlight. I'm here in Central Florida, and I'm in the south-facing area, and it gets a ton of heat. Now, not unlike Venus flytraps, which want a ton of heat as well, a ton of sunlight, they are far more tolerant of extremely high heat temperatures. Talking 100 degrees plus, and will do just fine as long as those water trays have water in them. These plants are extremely good at growing in a bunch of different conditions. They can grow in quasi sunlight, dappled light, all the way up to extreme light. Certainly they want the intense bright sunlight. They can handle temperatures all the way down into the teens and even lower, and all the way up past 100. But they will go into dormancy, and let's talk about that now. So these plants are temperate plants, and so they will go dormant on you about, depending on where you live, about September, October, for the winter. And they do that, and they die all the way back down to what's called a hibernacula. And here is an active one, but you can see it down there in the middle, the little fuzzy thing. All the leaves will start turning brown, and this will die all the way back to the ground. It will look, for all intents and purposes, like a dead plant, but it certainly is not. The hibernacula will look like little tiny upside down acorns in the soil that are firm to the touch, and that is a healthy hibernacula. Here is an example of an unhealthy one that did not make it, unfortunately. There's many reasons why this can happen, but I'm not too worried about it. These things spread prolifically, and as you can see, there is new growth already emerging here and here as well. Now, at the start of this video, I told you how you can take one plant and in a very short time get a bunch. That is not the way you think. It's not from seeding. Now, there are certainly varieties that do self-seed, like Floridana, which I'll show you in just a minute, but for the most part, you need two different filiformis in order to create viable seeds. And you might be, if you're not familiar with carnivorous plants, you might be like, no duh. But a lot of the sundews can self-seed. They're known as perfect flowers, and so they can actually self-pollinate and self-fertilize their seeds by simply just opening and closing their flowers. In the case of these filiformis, there are only a couple that will do that, one of them being Floridana, which I'll show you now. So this is a Floridana, also a red variety. There's another red variety known as the Jersey variety. This one is self-seeding. As a matter of fact, these are little pups that had some seeds in this live sphagnum moss that came up without me knowing about it. They only get about this tall. They're very small. As the name suggests, they come from Florida, but all these seeds here will be this is a perfect flower, and so all these will be self-fertile, and so they will spread out seeds and continue to grow more. Now, the one I showed you, the Californica, is not self-seeding, and some of the other ones, like I'll show you, the giant form, like the Drosera, is not as well. But this variety is, and so if you do get you a Floridana, know that they will grow. Now, there's a caveat to that being, of course, if you grow them outdoors, pollinators will take care of that, and you will have all kinds of Drosera and filiformis and Floridana and just all kinds of different varieties that you have in your collection sprouting up everywhere. But let's get to the main event. So what if you don't want to wait to get seeds? How else can you propagate this? And this is where the hook came in at the beginning of this video, where you can turn one plant into as many as you really want in a very short period of time. How do you do that? Well, let's talk about that. So for this part of the video, I've moved over to Drosera Bruce, which is a much larger all green variety of filiformis. Now, in order to achieve what I was talking about with many as you want, you would simply just take a leaf. It doesn't matter the size. You could take as little as 1-inch cuttings all the way down to the whole plant or the whole leaf. And then there's a couple different ways. You can water propagate, which is exactly what it sounds like. You put the leaf in water, keep it covered, and then in about maybe a month, you'll start to have a bunch of little babies. The other way is to cut it and put it in a like a dish or container with peat moss that's moist. Put this right on the top, press it down, and then keep a lid on it, spray the top with water, and just keep it moist. And then in about a month's time, you will literally have hundreds, if not, well, dozens and dozens and dozens, depending on the size of the leaf, of new leaves. Now let me show you. Let's go back to the Floridana and just tell you how quickly these things grow. So I'm going to go back over to these Floridana that I just showed you earlier in the video. These are full-grown plants, but here is the interesting fact. These were just seedlings only about a month ago, 2 months ago. They grow extremely fast from seeds to full grown. I didn't even know they were in here when I put the sphagnum moss in, and they've all of a sudden just popped up. Here's one that started growing at the beginning of, well, actually middle of June. Here it is July 11th, and you can see it's already halfway to full size. These plants grow incredibly fast, and so it does not take long at all to go from having just a leaf cutting to having a whole colony of these plants, especially if you're doing from cuttings in a very relatively short period of time, and then you just rinse and repeat. And in this way, it's really literally the sky's the limit, the amount of plants that you want to get for your collection. Now, these plants really are amazing plants that are able to create huge amounts in a very short period of time. I literally have hundreds of them, but I've only bought about 5 in my life, and that is just because I've propagated them so much. I could literally have as many as I want, but you just have to consider how much space you're willing to give up for them. Now, the other thing is pollinators love to pollinate them. So even if you don't have the ones that are self-seeding, before you know it, you'll have little volunteers popping up everywhere. I hope that this video has brought you some clarity to this amazing plant and has got you excited to grow them. As always, have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.